All right, we're recording. So, hey everyone, this is Leo. I'm a UPL cohort, and we've been working on this video lecture series thing for a while. And today I'll be talking about how to program using the Ruby programming language. I'm back home, which means I'm with my dogs, which means I might sound a little bit stuffed because of allergies. Also, you might hear the dogs in the background because they like to bark. All right, so let's get started. So let's talk a little bit about me first. So I'm a senior and I study computer science and math at UW-Madison. I like to use the term console cowboy because I read Neuromancer and I think it's a cool word, but I don't know, I'm just a regular dude. Uh, I am a UPL cohort, the undergraduate projects lab. UPL is the undergraduate projects lab. You guys should check it out if you haven't been there yet. It's full of really cool people who like working on projects and like talking about computer science. Um, about me personally, I've been using Ruby for about 2 years. I started thanks to the BendyWorks guys in Madison. They gave a Ruby on Rails bootcamp a few years ago that I attended, and I liked it a lot, and I really like the Ruby programming language. I've done several projects in Ruby, including a few games in the terminal. I've done some Ruby on Rails, although I gotta say I do like Ruby outside of Rails too. And finally, I attended the Madison plus Ruby conference in 2014. I think this summer is going to be the last year they do it, which is kind of sad. But I met a lot of cool people there, and I really like the Ruby community. So let's talk about you, which is a lot more important. So you should have a computer. This is the only way you could be watching this unless you're on your phone. Good. You have a computer. You have basic math skills. If anyone says the programming is hard, it's not. You just need basic math and reasoning skills. You want to learn how to program, otherwise, why else would you be watching this video? Or you just want to learn a new language. And with the power of programming comes a lot of freedom and awesome knowledge that you can use. So hopefully you're excited about that. There's a lot of reasons to learn to program. I have a list here. One of the reasons is maybe you're just looking for employment. Knowing how to program leads to a lot of fun and interesting jobs. But then there's also kind of more like kind of intangible reasons. Maybe you want to have better critical thinking skills. Maybe you want to become a rock star. There's a really cool video that's linked to the slide that's made by the code.org people. Programming allows you to make your dreams become realities, and I honestly mean that. If you can think of something and you know how to reduce it to an algorithm, you can make it come true. So let's talk a little bit about how computers work. You might think of computers as kind of through the technical definition, which is kind of the more cursive one I have here. But really, the way that I was taught by Mark Hill, who's a professor in the UW-CS department, is that they're just a bunch of stupido robots that communicate using ones and zeros, and they do numbers. They work with numbers according to mailboxes and simple commands like, move this number here, add these two numbers together, and stuff like that. They're really just kind of stupid. So how do programs work? So programs are human-readable files of text characters, so like ABC, 1, 2, 3, underscores, plus, minus, just stuff like that. Although now you can have the ability to use even emoji in your programs, which is cool. So interpreters are programs that read text and then perform actions on that text. So that's what we'll be using later to actually work with Ruby. Ruby is an interpreted language, which means that that's usually the only way you can work with Ruby is one line at a time. You might have heard of compilers. Those are basically interpreters that read the whole program at once and then convert the text into like a machine-readable representation that's usually allows for more speed. And eventually, all of this stuff just becomes ones and zeros that are sent to the CPU, and that's where it does all the adding and moving and all that good stuff. So let's talk a little bit about Ruby. It was created in Japan in the 1990s by a guy named Mats. What I really like, and this is the main reason I enjoy Ruby, is that it's focused on programmer happiness and human readability. And that's what really distinguishes it from a lot of other programming languages. Other languages may be built for simplicity, but that usually doesn't really translate to human readability. It often just means that you don't have a lot to work with. Other languages are focused on runtime speed, but that doesn't really help with programmer happiness. Often it leads to programmer frustration. So Ruby solves a lot of those problems. It has dynamic strong types. So you don't need to know what that means yet, but just know that you can't add a number to a dog, for example, unless you tell Ruby how to do that. It's object-oriented, and it has functional elements, so it allows for a lot of flexibility in programming style and paradigms. Ruby encourages the ability to do things in different ways. Everyone kind of has their own preference in how to use Ruby. And like I said earlier, the community is awesome. It's really lively. The Rails community itself is very lively, and yeah, that's a really great reason to use a language. Also, other languages such as Elixir, Crystal, Rails, and how APIs are used, and even Harmony are used or are influenced by Ruby. So even if you don't decide to use Ruby after this presentation, you'll still learn a lot from it, and you might be able to apply it in other areas. So here are my opinions on Ruby. These are, I underscore it and italicize it because these are my opinions. You're totally welcome to disagree with it. But if you're just wondering why I choose Ruby over other languages for certain tasks, here's why. So I think that Ruby is better than Python because it is more dynamic. It feels more flexible. It feels like it's easier to do things. And just it has overall better object orientation and functional programming elements. I feel like that's very kind of inflexible in Python. You really have to do weird things in Python. At least how I feel. It's kind of unnatural in Python compared to Ruby. Ruby also has great readability because of this. Python, you know, it looks good, but I feel like Rails encourages readability in ways that Python really doesn't. Going back to kind of Ruby wants that human readability and English-like syntax. Where Python does win out is that it has really great packages in the area of science, so kind of like numerical computation or maybe like scientific, or I know like I've used Python's OpenGL library before, so Python does have advantages in that area for sure. Versus JavaScript, I'd say Ruby has flat out better design. It's a lot more, it has a lot less surprises as you would think. You know, you don't have to deal with not a number and stuff like that because Ruby is strongly typed. Like I said, you can't add a number object to a dog object. If you do that in Ruby, you'll get an error, as you should. Ruby also has a lot better user friendliness. It has a very rich API and amount of stuff that's available out of the box that just JavaScript doesn't have. Also, Ruby is stable and mature. For example, when Ruby makes an update, it usually doesn't break things. For example, JavaScript going from ES5 to ES6, there's tons of things that don't work you know, like you can't use ES6 in ES6 syntax using in an ES5 browser. With Ruby, usually things that are different are just the way that methods are implemented, and the syntax doesn't really change. And then it kind of got cut off, but I said that JavaScript does win over Ruby in the area of front-end web stuff, so client-side stuff. Although when WebAssembly comes out, that might not be an issue. Another reason people kind of rag on Ruby is because of its speed. Now, that mainly refers to runtime and compile time speed. Ruby, obviously it's interpreted. It has a lot of syntactic sugar that allows for really awesome readability, but that does slow it down to a certain extent. But then I'd counter that with saying that Ruby does have overall faster speed in areas such as time it takes to implement something, um, the gains you get in not having to debug complex code because Ruby is generally well written and easy to understand. So it's easier to find bugs. For example, you don't have weird type issues like you might have in JavaScript. Also, testing is easy with Ruby because there's a lot of packages for it. The Ruby community, especially the Rails community, is very into testing. And then also something that's kind of like inverse to implementation time is fun time. You don't want to be stuck in the office trying to debug stuff and kind of screaming at the computer. And Ruby really helps with this because you can get a lot done quickly. So let's talk a little bit about the lingo of programming. If you've taken 302 or 367, you're probably familiar with a lot of these terms. But basically, a variable is a box that contains something. In Ruby, that's how I kind of picture everything. As you can see, I'll talk about it in terms of Bender later on. Integers are numbers, floats are numbers, strings are a sequence of characters, so a word is a string, a sentence is a string. A method is basically a procedure, an object is a collection of boxes and procedures, and a class is a blueprint for manufacturing those objects. So if you are new to object-oriented programming or just programming in general, you can think of objects as robots, basically. They receive messages, so you might say something to Bender, and then he'll give you a response. Or you might send a message to Bender, and something internally, kind of inside of his guts, will change, and he'll give you a response. So here I have some sample Ruby code that might be used in creating a Bender class. So here we're giving Bender his name, which is a string. We're creating a new robot. So this is kind of like we're using the robot blueprint to create a robot object. Then we tell Bender to drink, so maybe his happiness counter increases inside. Then if Bender's outside, we'll tell him to smoke. Otherwise, just nothing will happen. If he's inside, for example, here we're creating another variable, another box, and we're filling it with the string "kiss my shiny metal CPU," and then we're telling Bender to shout using this box containing data. Here's another example. We create this box called Bizarro, and we have the string Earth, and we're sending Earth the message reverse, so that basically flips the string. Then we will print using the keyword puts, or put s, that will print this in the terminal. We'll see that used later on when we use the REPL. Then we send the uppercase message to the box Bizarro, and then this makes everything all uppercase. Let me print that, and then there's my dog. So then, what do you guys think this does? I'll give you a few seconds to think about it. All right. So what this does is it takes what's in this box, and then it appends 5 exclamation points to what's ever in this box and fills it in this variable, angry loud Bizarro, and then we print that. So what's cool here is that this is actually totally valid Ruby. 5 times exclamation point is implemented in the core. So you know that a string times an integer is just that string that many times. If you in your own time, you should see what happens if you said 5 times exclamation point, because it shouldn't work because it's strongly typed. So here's another example. You can pause now and read this. I won't go through it just for the sake of time. And now let's go on to the fun part. So you can download Ruby. If you're using a Mac, it should come already installed. It might not be the most recent version, but for the stuff we're doing, it should work anyway. There's also easily downloadable packages on Linux. I think you have to download an installer if you're using Windows. But yeah, we're just gonna use the REPL, so it should work in any case. So right now I'll move to the gist. And then if you have questions, feel free to comment on this YouTube video or reach out to me directly if you go to UW-Madison, or like find me on Facebook or something. Or you can comment on the gist, which people have already done. Also, Ruby is a pretty popular thing, so if you Google search, you should be able to find most answers to your questions. So let's move on to the gist. And I will reveal the REPL. So here's the website you should go to basically have your terminal. So let's just run the first thing here. The first thing you should do in any programming language is see if you can do hello world. So let's do it. So it's just put s, and then we'll start a string, hello world. So here we have our command. This is basically a method that's passed to the global object, or it's a message passed to the global object. And then we're passing it using the argument hello world. So now we'll hit enter, and then it prints hello world. Oh, great. All right, we did it. So let's move on. So you can do some more interesting stuff. You can see that Ruby has math. So and let's do num is equal to 100 plus 10 plus 1, and then we'll get 111, which makes sense. And then we can overwrite the same variable. So if we say num equals num plus 1000, num will be updated. So we can do that. There's also shorthand syntax if we wanted to increase it by 80, for example. Oh, there we go. Okay, just pause for a second. And we see that this increases. And this works with all the mathematical operators. So let's see what happens when we have a string. Strings are another important object in Ruby. So we'll say, we'll ask ourselves favorite color, and then we'll say color is gets.chomp. So get s is similar to put s, but it gets a string instead of prints it. And then what chomp does, it just removes unneeded white space, which is basically the new line character. So now it's waiting for us to give it a response. And let's say my favorite color is no. I'm a Badgers fan. Let's say red. Okay, so now color should be a box or variable filled with the string red. All right, cool. So now let's remember that we have that upcase command. Cool, so you can see it upcased it correctly. Now if we want to set color to its upcased form, Ruby usually has a shorthand way of doing that, which is adding this bang operator here, the exclamation point. So now when we ask it what color is, it's the uppercase version. And if we wanted to, do the reverse thing with it, dir. All right, so now color is dir. So let's look at some other interesting things. So get a partner and work through them with this stuff. I'll show you guys how to implement a method. So here we have let's implement this method. So the way that methods work in Ruby is that they're either global or they're part of classes or modules. But let's just talk about global now since it's easy. So every method begins with the word def, and then the method name, and then the argument. I shouldn't put a space here. It doesn't make a difference, but the Ruby community suggests that you don't put a space in between the method name and the argument. And the argument has to go in parentheses. Then you do new line, and then let's do this. So this interpolates it. So basically it sticks whatever's in here. It stringifies whatever's in here and then puts it in between these two brackets. and then I explicitly say return whatever the user responds, and then I end the method declaration with the word end. In Ruby, you don't need to explicitly say return, but for clarity's sake, I'll put it in there. I could have just said get.chomp without the return there. So if we run this, let's do this. All right, cool. So it knows that this method exists. So I can say ask color to, let's say, Aaron Rodgers, because I'm also a Packers fan. So Aaron Rodgers, what is your favorite color? And as Aaron Rodgers, I will say greenish, or yeah, greenish gold. Cool. We can use this to store into a variable, so I can say, Bucky color is equal to ask color to Bucky Badger. Bucky Badger, what is your favorite color? And Bucky will say red. Yeah, and he's excited, so we'll add an exclamation point. Cool. So now we have Bucky's color, which is red, and he's excited about it. So you can see we can use that in if statement here. So we can say if so I'll just say second color is blue. So this is the way that if statements work in Ruby. You begin it with just saying if Bucky color equals second color, then the if statement will start. We'll say puts. Cool. Then we give the second case else. Actually, we'll do else if. So the way that Ruby does else ifs is this one word else if. Bucky color equals second color dot reverse. Puts okay, and then we'll say else puts awkward and then we'll end. So obviously blue is not equal to red, so none of these execute except for else, and then it puts awk, which is what we wanted. So that's how if statements work in Ruby. Yeah, and if you're coming from a language like Java, just know that semicolons aren't necessary. You can use them if you have more than one expression per line. So I could do like puts A, puts B, but you don't need semicolons like you do in Java or C. So there are other things you can do in Ruby. Obviously, numbers and strings aren't everything. You can do lists, which look like this. So basically just the square brackets, and then you can put whatever you want in your list. You can even do non-homogeneous lists, like they don't have to be the same type. So you can do something like this. Lists also have methods, so I could do like just 4. Okay, that makes sense. And then I could do reverse. Cool. Just Google, array. That's the official name of the class, and you'll be able to see all the cool things you can do with this. So the way that you iterate over arrays in Ruby, or just generally act with arrays, is usually through do notation. So if you're familiar with JavaScript, these are callbacks that are kind of built into the language. Otherwise, just know that it's really awesome and anglicized way of working with code. So let's say I want to add an exclamation point to everything. So I can say, let's make a list. So list equals, let's be patriotic. So red, white, blue. So let's say I'm super patriotic and whatnot, and I want to print all of, no, I want to create a new list that contains these. So I'll say list merca is list.map, and then the way you do this is you say map do, and then for everything in my list, I'll create a variable called item, do a new line, and then basically what I put inside, what I do on this next line is what I want to transform each element in this list to. So I will say item dot uppercase plus so basically append 3 exclamation points to the uppercase version of this. I hit new line and I say end to end this block. Cool. So now I have this in the merca list. So this syntax is called block syntax in Ruby. It's actually taken from Smalltalk, I believe, and it's a really kind of interesting way of using callbacks and lambdas in your programming language. If you don't know what those terms mean, just call them blocks, and they're basically code that you provide to tell built-in functions what to do. So I talk about hashes a bit. If you come from other languages, they're called maps or maybe dictionaries. They work pretty much the same way. You can index them using strings or symbols, and symbols are basically immutable strings. There's some other properties to them, like I won't go over them, but just know that you can also use symbols. There's a lot of good reading online to talk about symbols. If you come from a Lisp background, you'll understand what symbols mean. So now let's go over some challenges. Let's just make a quick program. Let's make a restaurant simulator. That was my first project I ever did in C++, and I think it's a good way to learn a new language. So we'll clear this. I comment this out. So in Ruby, you comment stuff out using pound signs or octothorpes in front of everything. You can also, if you do 3 quotes and then something, that also comments it out. Basically just turns it into a string. So let's say that we are running a bakery. Let's create a hash for this. So one of the first things I have is a donut. And we want to store more information about our donut. Yeah, let's see. I also want to use a class for this, so we'll say the donut is the price is yeah, we'll use a symbol for this because price will be kind of a constant thing. We'll say the price is 1.50, and the amount is, we'll have 50 donuts. Then we'll have cake, and the price of a cake will be, say, $10. Notice how I'm using floats. The amount we'll have is 10, and then the last thing we'll have is pi. And then the price of a pie, let's say, is 8.50. Let's do a more interesting number. 8.25. And then the amount of pies we have is 30 pies. All right, cool. So this basically represents my inventory of items for my bakery. Now let's make a class that handles this. So in Ruby, this is how you make a class. They all inherit from basically the base object. so I don't need to do anything fancy like that. I create an initialize method, and this is basically what is used to instantiate your object. It's every class uses it, but it's not required unless you want to do something besides default instantiation. And let's say we have this, so it takes our items object, and then so this is basically like saying this in Java. This is basically saying this dot items equals items. So this is my instance variable. And then we'll create another method that represents a sale. So, and then we'll do item, and then say how much money we have. So we start with no money. So there's a few things that can happen when we want to sell an item. So if, and we'll assume that item is a string. So if at items dot, or we index with item, so this means this. So this is basically saying if we have this item, and at items, item, and then if we have a non-zero amount, so this is saying you want to buy this item, or the customer wants to buy this item in that amount. Then do something, so we'll fill this out later. Otherwise, let's handle bad cases. So basically, if we don't have that, we'll just say puts don't, we want to use that quotation mark, so we'll say sorry, item is out of stock. And this will be the only method we do. So let's fill this out now. So we need to do a few things. First, the customer, oh, there's a bug. So we want to say it's greater than or equal to. So first, the customer gives us money, so we'll say at revenue plus equals amount times at items item price. So this is first saying that we gain that much money, and then at items item amount minus equals amount. So we lose that amount of money. We will also say that, oh, never mind. There could be a case that they'll say 0, but we'll just say that the customer is smart enough not to be a smart aleck. All right, so here's our class that represents our bakery. So then we'll just say, we'll create a new bakery. So my bakery is equal to bakery.new, and then we'll pass the items that we have. Just make this more clear. This is my items. So right here, we are creating a new object based off our bakery blueprint. And we'll just add a nice message. and we'll tell the customer how much they owe us. So cost is equal to amount plus items at the item price, and then we will update our revenue just like before. Awesome. Okay, cool. Now we are ready to start. So we will load this. Hopefully there won't be any syntax errors. Cool. So this is basically saying that we have our object and that we're ready to roll. So let's start selling things. So my bakery. Awesome. So my bakery, and then we'll make our first sale. So let's buy 3 donuts. Oh. Very interesting. So let's see what's going on here. Okay, so it has been converted to a symbol. So I can tell that because it's using this kind of style right here with the semicolon, or the colon. So let's fix that. Actually, yeah, let's fix that right now. So we have a weird case where this item is not what we think it might be. So this is kind of one of the pitfalls of having dynamic typing. It doesn't say explicitly what we want, so let's just say item, let's just coerce it, equals item.toSym. So this basically will hard code, or it forces that to be converted to a symbol. So let's run it. Awesome. Okay, so now we'll do that again. Oh, Merca. Okay, cool. So let's buy 3 donuts. Cool. So that worked. So now if we see my bakery, awesome. So you can see that it got changed to 47. Now let's update this and tell the customer how much you owe cost. So using this bracket notation, or this interpolation notation, this automatically converts cost to a string, but we can be more explicit with that. We can say you owe, and then we'll say plus cost.toS, and this basically means convert cost to a string. So let's rerun this. So my bakery dot sell, and then let's sell 3 cakes. So cake, and then 3. So I owe $30. All right. And then if we see my bakery again, you should see that this variable cake, yep, it got decreased by 3. So now let's see something where it doesn't work. So my bakery dot sell, let's sell a giraffe, and let's buy 1 of them. Oh dang, we don't have any giraffes. Okay, let's see if we can buy. Let's see if we can buy a cake, and then we'll buy 100. Oh, okay, so that's another thing we can fix. I'll leave it to you guys to implement this, but what happens if we do have an item, but they asked for too much of that item? You should just be able to add another if statement in here, or maybe an else if that would fix this case to make this a more readable error message, or more useful error message, because we obviously do have cake. So let's see what happens when we buy the rest of the cakes. So I owe $70, and then we'll say my bakery dot sell. Let's buy another cake. Let's just try and buy 1, and then we get the cake is out of stock. And this is actually what we want in this case, unlike this one. So how can you guys write an if statement that would fix this problem? All right, so that's pretty much all I got. Ruby has some really easy file I/O and other cool object-oriented stuff that you can do. I'll leave it to you guys to figure that out. One cool thing that you could add, for example, is metaprogramming. It sounds scary, but it's actually really useful. So if want to do adder reader items, this would basically allow me to access this items variable here like it was a method. It's basically a getter or accessor if you come from something like Java. All right, yeah, I think that's going to do it for me. As I said before, I really like Ruby. I find it very useful. It's fun to program with, it's easy to program with, and it makes me a happy programmer. I hope you guys enjoyed this talk, and check out the next video. All right, bye.